Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. We're going to get ready and get started here. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. CMC connects people and ideas through community conversations at forums just like this one nearly every week. I'm Ellen Block. I'm the owner of Curated Strategy, and I'm also proud to serve as a member of CMC's Board of Trustees and as their trustee treasurer. For those of you joining us by live stream, we're coming to you from the Ellis in Columbus's historic Italian village. Welcome, everyone. We're so thrilled to bring you today's forum, Bioscience Breakthroughs, are saving lives in Central Ohio, in partnership with the 4-day COSI Science Festival, which starts today. As with so much of what you can experience, yay, COSI, woo! I should have worn orange, I didn't realize, guys. As so much of what you can experience through the Science Festival, today's forum is intended to help highlight the role that science, scientific thinking, and entrepreneurship are playing in Central Ohio every day. Speaking of great partners, let's thank our forum sponsors, Armidas Bio, Battelle, Holder Construction, Ohio Life Sciences, the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, and Sarepta. Thank you also to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and the Ellis for hosting us. Every CMC forum takes a village. Let's thank everyone supporting today's program. Bioscience leaders are developing new drugs, therapies, and medical devices to treat disease and improve lives. With today's panel, we'll dissect, I like that, Doug, we'll dissect the bioscience business in Central Ohio. To introduce our panel, please welcome Danielle Griffin with today's sponsor, Sarepta. Danielle, the podium is yours.
Good morning, I'm Danielle Griffin, the head of research operations at Sarepta Therapeutics. I want to first start out by saying it's like a family reunion in here. I see a lot of familiar faces, and so thank you for your attendance. So I'm excited to be here today to introduce the panel. And before introductions, I'd like to express the importance of why we're here. We're here to bring awareness to the extraordinary work that's happening right here in our own backyard, and the challenges that we face every day in ensuring that we get therapies, or manufacturing, and funding to the right places. Sarepta Therapeutics, Forge Biologics, LENTECHS, and Drive Capital are all set out on a mission to develop and manufacture technologies and therapies and provide funding and resources to those in need. Those in need are our patients, families, and caregivers, all while serving the community and stimulating the economy by bringing in talent and bringing in jobs. And not just jobs, but careers to those who so desire. So it's my great honor to welcome today's panel of Central Ohio leaders. Please welcome Dr. Frank Agbogbo, Vice President of Process Development with Forge Biologics. Dr. Louise Rodino-Klapac, Executive Vice President, Head of R&D, and the CSO with Sarepta Therapeutics. Robin Sears, President and CEO of LENTECHS. And Dr. Erandi de Silva, Investment Partner with Drive Capital. And our host, Tyler Allchin, Managing Director for Healthcare with JobsOhio. Welcome to CMC, and we look forward to today's conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Columbus Metropolitan Club for the invitation today. It's a privilege to moderate such a distinguished panel and be with so many industry and research pioneers in the office. Each of our panelists and the organizations they represent have contributed immensely to the growth of the life sciences ecosystem here in Columbus, Ohio. At JobsOhio, we're particularly proud of this growth and the employment that we've gained in this must-win sector for us. So much so that we've launched the Ohio Discovery Corridor to shine an even greater spotlight on the wins that we're having, such as what got announced at Amgen in New Albany just last Friday. A lot more to come on that front, and I want to thank the Ohio Life Sciences Association, Eddie Pauline, Bill Dunleavy, and team for their driving force, not only here today for this lunch and this panel, but statewide. I'm very privileged to be the chair of that organization, and they're doing great work in support of the organizations you see here this afternoon and statewide. The trendy thing to do right now is run panel questions by ChatGPT, but I've opted against that and rehearsed with my 2-year-old daughter last night, getting ready for today, so I assure you, you're in good hands. Today's talk has a focus on breakthroughs and how we're taking innovation and breakthroughs and bringing them to patients here in Central Ohio. Louise, I'm going to start with you. Your career, amazingly, has stretched from the lab to a startup to now being head of research in R&D at a publicly traded global gene therapy leader. I think the audience would love to hear a little bit about that story and how Central Ohio played a key role in it.
Sure, absolutely. I think my story is marked by milestones of wanting to stay in Ohio and finding ways to do that. I came to Ohio 25 years ago as a graduate student in molecular genetics at Ohio State. And then when it was time for my postdoc, wanted to stay, and so I went to work with Dr. Jerry Mandel at Nationwide Children's Hospital as a postdoctoral fellow. We had a brilliant working relationship that's now spanned many, many years. And developed technologies together. I became faculty at Nationwide Children's and Ohio State in the Department of Pediatrics. And we continue to do clinical trials in muscular dystrophy in both Duchenne, limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, and others. And over that time, developed a portfolio of limb-girdle muscular dystrophy and began, I'm really having to accelerate all of this. There are a lot of work went into this, but began a startup called MyNexus with Mike Triplett and Bruce Halpern and others around the limb-girdle portfolio. At the same time, continued to develop what would become ELEVIDYS with Dr. Mandel. And so at that time, around 7 or 8 years ago, Sarepta wanted to license the technology both for MyNexus and in the ELEVIDYS, what would be the ELEVIDYS technology. So all that came together. They wanted me to come too. And so when I spoke to our CEO, Doug Ingram, I said, I'm happy to come, but I'm staying in Columbus and I want to build our research lab here. And so fast forward 7 years later, we have almost 200,000 square feet in the Easton area, over 200 employees. I lead R&D, which is almost 600 employees of our 1,400 employees at Sarepta. We're a global company. So there's a lot in all of that we could unpack, but it was really important for me to stay here and provide what would become an option for scientists coming out of Ohio State and other areas to come here, work here, and thrive here, and develop therapies here, most importantly. And so that's a snapshot of the story.
The scale of the story is amazing, and how fast it's come from an idea to 200 people in an R&D center is amazing. Frank, your team at Forge manufactures technology coming from biotech such as Sarepta Therapeutics and others across the market. I'd love to know a little bit of insight on your role and what you play in bringing medicines to patients.
That's great. So we are a contract development manufacturing organization, so focus on gene therapies and for companies like Sarepta. And with my role, we improve the process, so bring processes over, figure out how to produce these gene therapies for the patients, and then scale it up. And so, as most of you know, AAV production scalability is a big challenge. monoclonal antibodies has been on for some time. Those are very well understood, but scaling up adeno-associated viruses is quite challenging. And so over the years, and it's nice to be on the panel with Erandi, who founded Forge, so very honored to be on the same panel with you. And so over the last 5 years, what we've done is being able to scale up, develop our process development, and also scale up to GMP manufacturing. And so over the period, we've increased size of the team to over 370 people. And we still have a lot of openings and continuing to hire. And we've served over 50 clients, and that is also continuing to grow. And to be able to have access to Ohio State and the training coming out of Ohio State and the other universities around, like Case Western Reserve University, Miami, Columbus State, we have some collaborations going on there to train personnel to be able to continue to feed the projects that we have coming through. So, yeah.
Thanks so much. Erandi, I'll turn to you, co-founder of Forge Biologics, and now on the VC side of things. Maybe I'll follow up on the question for Frank, and just your experience in the gene therapy hub here in Columbus and scaling a business. How did Columbus get to have such a concentration of expertise, and maybe what that means for us moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. I would just like to underscore some points that Louise and Frank touched upon, but just to give you a sense of the scale of some of the work that Forge is doing and Sarepta is doing here. Elevidys, the product that Louise was talking about, is one of the very first FDA-approved gene therapy products and is on track to achieve blockbuster status, which is a huge thing for our field. That was a product that was invented right here in Columbus, Ohio, that achieved FDA approval and is about to cross $1 billion in revenue a year. That's what it means to hit blockbuster status. That's really an amazing point to dwell on, because that shows kind of the viability of AAV gene therapies at scale, and hopefully is really setting the field up for success and future blockbusters to follow. As regards, Forge Biologics, I was there yesterday. I haven't visited since I left about a year ago. But it was so amazing to hear that Forge is now 380 employees, and also to hear from you, Louise, that Sarepta has over 200 employees. 5 years ago, when Sarepta had just opened up its R&D facility here, and Drive Capital was seeding Forge Biologics, we had no sense that within 5 years, across these two companies alone, we would have over 700 employees, right? And that's an amazing amount of growth in a very high-tech, skilled labor subset of the market. And that's just an amazing thing to witness. So I feel so privileged to have been part of this journey. Obviously, I actually worked at Myonexus Therapeutics with Louise for a short period of time, and Mike and Bruce. But then when the acquisition happened from Sarepta, I had no job. So I had to, which I do not begrudge, figure out what I was going to do, and that is how Forge Biologics was born, right? But Forge Biologics is a story that really was seeded out of the Drive Capital office. So again, a local venture capital firm seeded this company that then grew on to hire a lot of people locally, and actually about a quarter of the employees that we hired at Forge over the time that I was there relocated to Columbus to join the company. I don't know what your stats are for Sarepta, Louise, but I think that's also a really compelling point, that we are now drawing talent from the coasts.
Yeah, I'll just say that we've been impressed. We've had significant amounts of people come and relocate to Columbus, and they fall in love just like we all did, in terms of it's a great city. It's a very livable city. It's a great place to raise a family. So,
Robin, you're a great example of attracting talent from the coast in the eye care and ocular technology space, and I think the model with which you're promoting entrepreneurship for bioscience and life sciences here in Central Ohio. Maybe a little bit about how you got started in your story.
Well, thanks very much for having me, and very pleased to be part of such an esteemed panel. My wife's from Ohio. I'm not. I was originally born in England. Came to school here in Ohio at Wittenberg University and fell in love with Ohio. Then went off and did a lot of life science with some of the bigger companies in the world. I started at Johnson & Johnson on the East Coast and then went to Allergan and on the West Coast, a big eye care company. I ran the eye care business there at Allergan and the dry eye franchise. Then I came here to Abbott Nutrition and was relocated here to Columbus, Ohio. My wife and I had been coming back here to Columbus over and over as we had our family, and we'd come back here to our little cabin that we have up on Lake Erie and fell in love with the area. And then after working here with Abbott Nutrition, really got an understanding of the talent pool. Now, it's great to have great technology and innovation, but the driver of that innovation is people, right? So if you think about the people of Ohio and the talent base that's here, even if you think about college graduates, 25,000 college graduates a year who are STEM graduates, that's an amazing talent pool. And then you have this huge innovation engine here in Ohio with the big teaching institutions and Battelle, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and other places where life science innovation is coming from. So when I left Abbott, it really became apparent to me that there's an ecosystem here for innovation. I have a passion for launching new products and started working with the Technology Commercialization Office at Ohio State and licensed a technology for an eye care technology for presbyopia. So for all of us in the room who need glasses or longer arms to read a menu in a restaurant, we have a contact lens technology to help that condition called presbyopia. And once we launched that company and built that infrastructure around eye care technology here in Ohio, my business partner and I at the time decided to start an incubation engine for new technology in eye care. And since then, we've launched 3 new companies, all in eye care. And now we have a team of people that we're attracting from around the country back here to Ohio to do the development of those innovations and bring them to the people who need them. You know, eyesight and sight is a very important part of our lives, and I'm really proud to be driving innovation to help people with better eyesight for a longer period of time in their lives. So that's sort of our story, and very pleased to be here in Ohio and part of this great group of people that are driving innovation here in Ohio.
Tremendous. You know, it strikes me as we hear all these stories that, you know, all of this growth is facilitated at some level by venture capital or risk capital more broadly. Erandi, you're kind of on the panel have made a transition to the other side of the table. I'm curious how the transition's been and what you've learned as you've kind of been on the other side after fundraising for so many years.
Yeah, you're right. I actually had to distill some of these thoughts down yesterday for a talk that I gave at Forge. You know, it's been 1 year on the other side of the table from the Drive team. And, you know, what we do at Drive, you know, just to kind of set the stage, it's one of the largest venture capital firms between the coasts, so $2.2 billion under management. And the goal of Drive is to really find entrepreneurs in unexpected places and grow big businesses in unexpected places, you know, as opposed to the traditional, you know, Silicon Valley, you know, nexus or epicenter of venture capital. So today we have 140 companies in the portfolio, and we're very much generalist investors, so really across all kinds of different businesses in the life sciences, healthcare, financial tech, insurance tech, et cetera. So, you know, for them to hire a scientist, I'm a scientist by training, and, you know, really bring a life sciences focus or biotech sector focus is, you know, a change for them, right? And so I've been spending my time talking to a lot of companies across the country, learning about what is kind of scalable and interesting at this moment, which truly is kind of a difficult moment for the biotech sector. We have a lot of headwinds ahead of us or facing us, not only from kind of the pipeline of students and research funding coming up, to other geopolitical concerns and how that may impact runway for biotechs. But I still find a lot of things to be excited about and optimistic about. And I think as long as we're focusing in the areas where we have strength, for example, looking where we actually are headquartered around us in Ohio and seeing where innovation is happening out of such amazing research institutions like Nationwide Children's, Ohio State, Cleveland. What can we find locally and then kind of leverage that to build up in this time when maybe it looks a bit scary to start a biotech company, but maybe it's also a really exciting time to start a biotech company.
Yeah, I think it's a great time to lean in.
Yeah.
Robin, Louise, both your companies have raised venture capital being here in Ohio. I'd love to hear your thoughts on maybe what we're doing well and what we could improve upon in that space as we look to scale up additional of what we're working on.
Yeah, I think, beyond innovation and the innovation engine that is here in Ohio and the ability to attract talent, to drive the technology forward, to de-risk it and to create value and to do the things that need to be done to meet the clinical endpoints. The lifeblood of any new organization is access to capital. I think that here in Ohio, we have a great story to tell to the investment community. I think the reason that we've been able to get traction with investment from the coasts as well as here in the Midwest is that we have a very efficient development cycle here in Ohio. If you look at the total cost of doing business here in Ohio compared to doing it in San Francisco or in Boston or on the other East Coast hubs of life science innovation, the estimate is that you can get the same work done here in Ohio for between 20 and 30% less in terms of total investment to get the same work done. So we're amazingly efficient here in Ohio, and that's part of the driver of our success. And that really becomes an attractive part of the story to the investment community, that if you can raise less total capital to get to the same endpoints and de-risking and clinical regulatory endpoints that you need to bring the product to market and to change people's lives, that really becomes a very efficient investment for the big VCs and private equity groups that want to invest in life sciences, because that means less dilution at the end of the game when you're either going to market or getting to IPO or getting bought by a larger company like Myonexus did. So that is a very efficient part of the story, and I think we've been successful in bringing that private equity and VC money here to Central Ohio because of how efficiently we can do things, how we can surround the technology with high-quality people, and how we can get to the same endpoints much more quickly and efficiently, both from a resource point of view and a time point of view.
Louise, what's the most important thing that you need at that early stage of commercialization and scale up?
Yeah, I think just speaking about Myonexus and thinking about it when we were trying to raise money initially, at that time there wasn't a huge precedent in gene therapy and trying to convince people why we needed so much money and why manufacturing is so expensive. That was a challenge. So I think it was really selling the idea of the reason to believe. And now we're at the point where we have these therapies. And so new companies coming in can point to these success stories and the capacity for what it can do for patients. So I think that it's in a much better place. Now with Sarepta being a publicly traded company, we haven't had to raise money because we have revenue from our approved products. So that's a unique and good place to be in, especially in today's climate. But I certainly have seen both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and these success stories have carried us a lot further over the last 5 years. I just want to underscore the context of all of this. It's still very early innings, although many people in this room have been at this journey for decades. The growth has really happened in a concentrated fashion over the last 5 years. So we've got a very long runway ahead of us. Frank, I want to come back to just a look inside your Forge facility. Having been there many times and know what it looks and feels like inside. I bet the audience today might find some value of just hearing you tell that story about the types of jobs and the people that come to work at Forge every day.
Sure. Yeah, so we have people in all departments, starting from manufacturing, where we make GMP grade AAVs. So we have from 50 liter up to 1,000 liter single-use bioreactors and single-use ACTA systems. And then we also have process development, which is the group I lead. That is doing in some of the initial small-scale evaluations. And then we also have analytical development. We have quality, supply chain, and then we have HR, finance. And so we have all those jobs, and we do have some openings as well. So anybody listening that is looking for an opening, please go to our website and apply.
Perfect. I like to say my colleague Josh Hoffman, who's here today, and I used to have companies ask us about other things besides workforce and talent, but for the last few years, it's been nothing but workforce and talent. Curious the panel's thoughts on how you've navigated recruiting great hires to your companies and what the talent pool has been like here in Central Ohio.
Yeah, I think you can see an increase year over year in terms of the people coming in with expertise or a background in gene therapy. I think the ecosystem that we're developing is you're starting to see a lot of cross-pollination between companies and background from other companies coming in. So that's been great. I think there are certain areas where the state of Ohio and JobsOhio has been great in helping us develop, and a lot of other organizations, the types of skills that we need across the companies and making sure that we're fulfilling for the future, not just specific scientist positions, but things like process development, like supply chain down the road, like regulatory. So all of these other specialties are starting to now develop here with greater ease and speed of developing this talent.
Yep. Erandi, what comes next? Venture capital firms are always looking out, the next 3, 5 years, 10 years on that horizon. What do you think happens next here in Central Ohio on the life sciences front?
On the life sciences front, what I'm paying attention to is this kind of reshoring or onshoring of, it could be service providers and manufacturers, right? I think Central Ohio is placed so well to take advantage of this. We already have existing players who have footprint in this region, who are already manufacturing for really scaling and growing industries. So where can we double down on that? We have a lot of space, right? So when we were starting Forge, one of the key talking points for investors was, we have a 200,000 square foot warehouse that we can build in, and we can rent this for under $3 a square foot. And we would comp that to Boston or to San Francisco, where you couldn't even find a 200,000 square foot warehouse. And you certainly were paying north of $100 a square foot to do it. This was COVID times, things have changed. But, there's a lot of reasons to look at these places where there's wide open space, but then also an epicenter of really strong technical and engineering and life sciences talent. So you have to couple those two things together. So I think Central Ohio is so well positioned to take advantage of this. So right now, as I'm looking at my market maps for investing, I, again, am really drawn to the boring stuff, like the infrastructure, the businesses that serve and enable other businesses, and that's where I'm going to be investing.
Yep, great. That's music to our ears. We concur. Robin, maybe I'll ask you to kind of take your old corporate viewpoint of Columbus in thinking about what we're offering to those. We've had an uptick of companies being onshored and reshored to the area, making new investments, looking for talent in places to make partnerships. What do you think we're doing well? Maybe some areas that we could be improving as we compete with other states for corporate investment.
Yeah, I think from a big corporation, if I'm putting my J&J or Allergan or Habitat on and thinking about why Amgen came here, for example, I think that we've done a nice job here in Ohio of creating an infrastructure and an ecosystem to support life sciences innovation. As you said, it's really accelerated over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think we're at a jump-off point now where we've reached critical mass in being able to support new entities here in Central Ohio with workforce, which is one of the critical elements, right? But also with availability of low-cost space and lab space and places to manufacture high-quality products here in Ohio. I think all of those things have come together, and now we're at a jump-off point where we've reached a critical mass. And when you're thinking about those big corporations coming here to Ohio and why you could attract them and why we are attracting them, it's because we have all of those foundational pieces of that infrastructure and ecosystem now built, and now we can scale them rapidly. And if you're a big company and you're looking to really accelerate your development and you're looking for a perfect geography to do it, Ohio is becoming one of those perfect geographies. Low cost, great workforce, availability of space and expertise, and all of the other parts that are needed to either take a company from early stage development, Sarepta, or a company like Amgen, where you're trying to scale for further development and to bring more therapy and more life-changing therapeutics to people to change their lives and help their lives. If you're looking for that, then Ohio is really one of the target places in the country now. And I wouldn't have said that 5 to 10 years ago, but now you can see that other people and big companies are recognizing the possibility of Ohio. And that's really exciting for the next 10 years, right?
Louise, Nationwide Children's Hospital and now Sarepta has had the privilege to see a handful of technologies get all the way through the finish line and be fully FDA approved and impacting patients day to day. I'd love to know just personally what that feels like, and for your team and the culture at Sarepta now to see all that work over decades pay off on a commercial level.
Yeah, it's certainly fulfilling. I think just thinking about Nationwide, SMA Zolgensma was approved first, and then Elevidys 2 years ago, and then for a broader population a year ago, and hopefully next year, the first limb girdle. So I think my team is, many of them are here today that have been working with me for 15 to 20 years, and so it's a journey, and there was a lot of setbacks along the way, and it requires a lot of perseverance. So it's extremely emotional to get to the point of approval where you're getting these drugs to the people that need them, and it takes a lot of grit and and hard work, and so it's extremely gratifying. But I think, they probably get mad at me. I think I gave it a day and then was on to, okay, this is what we have to do next. And they're shaking their head like, yes, no rest, because there's a lot to do, and these patients and families are waiting, and we hear from them nonstop. And so you feel very compelled to work very hard.
Time is of the essence in this space for sure. Frank, you all went through an acquisition, call it the last, 18 months, 24 months. Maybe give us a little bit of a sense of what comes next at Forge as you're now part of a multinational team with resources and reach globally.
Yeah, it's been really good for us for the acquisition. And so we were acquired by Ajinomoto, for those who are not aware, Q4 of 2023. And so Ajinomoto has a really good science base. They've been highly focused on science, so over 100 years of history in science, and really have great scientists. So we've been doing some great collaborations, partnering with our partners in Tokyo, and even on analytics, process development. They've also have a lot of scalable experience, so have scaled up to 20,000, 30,000 liter reactors, and so working together to leverage some of that to see how we can do that for AAV. And then the third aspect is to be able to plan for long term, right? And so to Erandi's point on trying to see how do you raise money, how much runway do you have, and with Ajinomoto being a partner, you can plan for a long term. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so those have been really good for us in terms of that.
I just wanted to add, so it's incredibly gratifying to me to see how Ajinomoto has, incorporated with and is very collaborative with Forge Biologics. I mean, it's, I handed off my baby to go off to college. And it is a 120 maybe year-old company that, has a 100-year vision for what they will do here in Central Ohio, and a 100-year vision for what they will do with a biologics manufacturing facility in North America. So I think that is something really compelling. We handed it off to someone who wants to continue to invest here, and that's amazing.
Thank you all for a tremendous panel so far. It's CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions. We'll move to questions from our live stream and in-person audiences in just a couple quick minutes. So if you have a question, please make sure to find your way to the back of the microphone where Doug is. And if you're joining on YouTube, please type your questions into the chat. For the panel, I want to reach back to something Erandi said a couple minutes ago of just sort of the time we find ourselves in for science and medicine here in the market, general market turbulence, investor turbulence, changes at the federal level. Curious how each of you are viewing the moment that we find ourselves in and how you're navigating at each of your shops. Frank, I'll start with you.
I think it's challenging times, especially with the top of the funnel where research funding is challenging. I talked to some of my friends who are professors in the universities, and it's painful. And also with the SBR and STTR, where a lot of small businesses start. And so it's challenging times, and for us, it's just continuing to grind. Continuing to execute well on these drugs because at the end of the day, we want to be able to get these drugs to the patients that are waiting.
Yeah, it's certainly challenging times. I think what we're seeing on our side with FDA is that things seem to be moving as usual, and we hope that that continues. I think that would be our biggest potential concern. On one of my other concerns, just years from now, I serve on the Dean's Advisory Committee at Ohio State, and hearing the stories from faculty there, and just during the meeting, they were getting emails not about funding being cut nonstop, and I know that's true for many of you. So I worry about what it will do to the pipeline of PhDs and other scientists coming up, and so I think alternative funding is going to be really important for the next few years and something we'll have to navigate.
Absolutely. Robin, Erandi, anything on that front?
Yeah, I think that, everybody is concerned with the current macro environment. And I think as business leaders and people who are trying to drive innovation, it's really important for us to make sure that we keep our teams focused on the milestones that we're committed to and the day-to-day execution that we need to do to get the technology to the next milestone or endpoint, and make sure that we continue to keep that short-term, medium-term, long-term view of what's going to happen and how we can go about making a personal difference to that path. Because I think it's easy to get distracted and paralyzed by all these macro changes and the uncertainty and turbulence that's in the current environment. But if we keep our eye on the mission and the vision, which is making a tremendous change to people's lives, and what do we need to do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, yearly basis to try and get those things accomplished, I think we can come back to the basics of, okay, hey, let's drive the execution of our daily plan, our monthly plan, our yearly plan to get the technology to where it needs to be. But I think Louise brings up a great point. How do we make sure that the innovation engine that's been driving all of this great life science innovation here in Ohio, how do we make sure that innovation engine doesn't get stalled?
Yeah, really well said.
Yeah.
Erandi, final word before we go to Q&A.
Sure, maybe two perspectives. One from some of the CEOs that I get to speak to. It's really all about look at what you had planned for the next year to 2 years and revise, right? Figure out how to preserve cash, focus only on mission-critical activities, really get to milestones that will cause value inflection, right? For example, treat a patient in a clinical trial, understand whether your medicine is going to, have a signal, right? So for CEOs, really an uncertainty about when they will be able to raise again and what that raise or what that raise will be like in terms of evaluation, right? So the response to that is real focus on preserve runway. And then for investors, really cautious right now because we're not sure how this is all going to play out. But I think that also is, on the flip side of that, we have to remember that's an opportunity for investors. There is going to be a surplus now of companies looking to raise, and so that's an opportunity, at least how I see it, an opportunity for us to take a look at things and see what we can invest in that is now available, maybe.
Yeah, tremendous. Doug, I'll throw it back to you.
Tyler, thank you very much, and thank you so much to today's panelists. If you have a question for today's panelists, please do join us here at the microphone. If you're watching online, please type your question into the chat. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Great questions at CMC can be asked in just 1 or 2 sentences. And what punctuation mark does a question end with? It ends with a question mark. It's always good to remind ourselves of that. I'm going to launch us off with this one. A question for Dr. Rodino-Klapac. You mentioned hearing nonstop from patients. Can you share a little bit with us about the kinds of things that patients are asking you for?
They want therapies. Both clinical trials, approved therapies, whatever is possible. And I think as we go into more rare and ultra-rare indications, and the promise for my particular gene and my indication where there is nothing else, we get a lot of inbounds for that, just desires to develop new therapies, especially for genetic diseases. And so we are constantly doing our best to develop these therapies and serve the community. We need the successes to continue to develop and especially get into smaller indications. So we're doing our best.
Hi, everyone. Chris Lucas here, co-founder and chief science officer of DNA Nanobots. We're an early stage OSU spin-out biotech company specializing in targeted non-viral gene therapy located up in Powell, Ohio. Just thank you all today for being here and for your incredible work that you've done and continuing to do. Question is, I was wondering if you could please comment on how you see gene therapy evolving in the next 10 to 15 years, specifically to impact more diseases, as well as driving prices down to increase patient accessibility. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can begin. We have been doing a lot of improvements in terms of molecular improvements, in improving yields, as well as understanding how we can increase the number of doses per patient. And so at Forge, we currently launch our Fuel platform, which is a new platform to produce AAV that is getting a 20x improvement over the titers we were seeing. So meaning out of a batch, if you could dose 10 patients, now you can dose like 20 times 10, 200, right? And so those are ways we think those could could contribute to driving down costs. The other ones are like other technologies like new capsid designs where you can use AI to help design all of those. And so there is improvements that we think we can bring to reduce the cost of goods and ensure that the treatment costs can come down long term.
Thank you very much. John Lewis Jr., former president and CEO of the predecessor organization to Ohio Life Science, says, I know all of you after 20 years employed with Ohio Life Sciences, so this is open to any of you. How has the current tariff situation impacted your global supply chain?
Timely. Anybody want to jump in on that front?
So far, we have not seen it yet, but I'm sure it's coming and something that we're evaluating, but so far we haven't seen a big impact. I don't know if anyone else wants to.
No, I don't think from our end as well.
I think most of the goods and services that we're sourcing for our development and our innovation is Ohio-based or based here in the U.S., so the tariff structure hasn't really done much to our development of the early stage technologies we're working on.
Good to hear.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Murrah. I'm married to a licensing associate at the Children's Hospital, and so I hear a lot about some of the amazing things that the hospital is doing and then the companies partnering with them like Sarepta and Claramedics. So I'm just sort of fascinated by this, but in hearing about gene therapies, I think these things are really incredible, and so my question is really around, given the small patient population with the high development costs for one of these things that are often one and done, they're cured, what drives a company to commit to a rare disease treatment in the first place? Is it around the scientific promise, mission alignment, potential for expansion? Can you shed some light on that thinking ahead of that? Thanks.
I can speak to it. So I think there's a lot of different factors. I think for the limb-girdle portfolio of indications that we work on, each one of them individually is quite small, and it would be hard to justify working on just one. But because it's a platform, we're using the same vector and a lot of the same outcomes in our trials, that gives us the ability to leverage data and make it commercially viable. And so I think those types of strategies are important. And then as the technology advances and we can do smaller trials, we can leverage manufacturing, we'll be able to go into smaller and smaller indications. And that's, I think, the approach that we're taking and that many other companies are taking as well.
Thank you, everyone. Millions of dollars in federal scientific research grants approved by Congress have been rescinded since the start of the current administration. Could these cutbacks impact U.S. leadership in the bioscience industry? Tough question.
There's so many ways to go with that. I think one of the things that is a truth is we have amazing researchers, amazing people who are driving new technologies and new ways of thinking about biosciences. Those people aren't going to just turn their brain off. So those ideas and those innovations and those new ways of attacking the problems that people face on a daily basis in their healthcare, I don't think that's going to go away. It's incumbent on us and our leaders to find ways to continue that innovation engine. Even if the government has decided to change its model of funding, we need to find ways to fund the innovation that's necessary to keep driving U.S. leadership of the bioscience space. So I think that's an outstanding question for all of us as leaders in the space to find ways to make sure that innovation engine doesn't slow down.
I think it's a terrible and sobering development. If I can just tie it back to the gene therapy industry specifically, I think it's something like 80 to 90% of the gene therapies that are in development today actually were started in academic institutions. That's research that was federally funded at some point. So I think this is not a great development. It's causing a lot of anxiety amongst not only academics, but also amongst companies, small companies trying to pull technology out of universities and try to get funded. I think it's causing anxiety for students looking at biotech careers or thinking about a career path in this industry. And I think it comes at a time where, there are real geopolitical risks to not investing in this sector relative to other countries who are prioritizing biotech innovation and research, and really holding that up as a way to differentiate and really protect themselves against, future epidemics or pandemics. So I think it's a terrible development.
Thank you all again. Next question. The work of your companies is a mystery to many Ohioans, but can you tell us what's one breakthrough that your organizations are working on that could change the lives of patients?
I could start with one. And so like one of the questions came through, it was like one and done, right, for gene therapies. And so for diabetes, for example, I mean, like somebody taking insulin, they have to take it multiple times, right? And so there is projects we are working on right now that is an AAV-based therapy that will be that kind of one and done type of treatment for something like diabetes. And so, and again, to the question on reaching on large patient populations, some of the improvements we are seeing, the target is to be able to get to those large patient populations and to be able to produce enough vector to be able to treat those patients.
For us, it's the approval of the ELEVIDYS, which is the first gene therapy for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Started at Nationwide Children's, and then we brought it forth through approval 2 years ago, and that is having profound impact for Duchenne patients and many others to come. So we're very proud of that.
So I would talk about one of our other operating companies called Vitrinu. Currently, when somebody has wet AMD, meaning they're losing sight or central vision in the back of their eye, they have to go in and get a biologic injected every 1 to 2 months into their eye. Our company Vitrinu is creating a microcapsule to be able to load that microcapsule with a biologic that could last 6 to 9 months in the back of the eye. So going from a monthly or bi-monthly injection to once or twice a year is a major development, not only for the patients, but for the doctors and the caregivers who are burdened with that injection volume at the moment. So I think that's one of our operating companies that's really innovating in a very special space.
I would like to highlight, now that I see Tim Kripe here in the audience, one of Drive Capital's portfolio companies is actually another gene therapy company called ViroNexus. It's a spin-out of a technology from Nationwide Children's Hospital, and it's going to bring gene therapy, or AAV gene therapy, to an indication in which that hasn't been done before, which is cancer, oncology. And it has a whole pipeline of approaches to bring gene therapy to a massive number of people and patients suffering from a really terrible disease.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask one final question that I hope is fitting for the Kosai Science Festival, but what advice would you have for students interested in bioscience careers? What would you tell them?
Okay, I can begin. I think it's good to do internships and try it out because I never thought I'll be doing biotech and be in industry this long until I did my postdoc at Novozymes and realized how research can be turned into a product that benefits society. And so my advice is try different things, try internships, and basically figure out what you want to do from there.
Very biased, but absolutely do it. I think being a scientist is one of the best things you could possibly be, and having subject matter expertise in a given area and being able to go deep and make an impact to the world, for me, there's nothing better.
I would say my biggest piece of advice would be find a great mentor, somebody who can mentor you on your journey and make sure that you're building your success through somebody else's help. So mentorship would be my biggest advice. Find really good mentors.
I'm with Louise. Go do it. I'm a scientist by training, but I've done so many different things with it. I was an academic scientist. I have been in startups. I founded a company, and now I'm an investor. And I still introduce myself first as a scientist. So if nothing else, getting that training allows you to potentially help make medicines for people, which what more important thing is there? But also to maybe do many different things because you learn how to think about problems and how to think about science. So do it.
Actually, we'll do one more quick question. We have about 60 seconds left. I want to try to get this one in. This was from Eddie Pauline. What is a missing piece in our efforts to fully realize the potential of the bioscience industry in Central Ohio?
Missing piece of the ecosystem. What do you think?
We're getting there. I think it was having the end-to-end, and so having the early research, the development. I think I'd like to see more companies like us who are developing, bringing things to the clinic. We have manufacturing, supply chain. I think just making sure that we have all of the components so that you're not missing a certain piece. That would be my recommendation.
I think building more awareness of Ohio as a bioscience hub and a place that companies can be successful. I still think that there are lots of people on the coast who still don't understand how powerful an engine of innovation is happening right here in Ohio. So I think building more awareness of the innovation engine that is Ohio and how it can be leveraged for a more efficient path to market for some of these technologies, I think building that awareness is the biggest need at the moment.
We continue to be the market's best kept secret, and that's a problem, right? So we're trying to turn the dial on the marketing and brand, and again, just double clicking on the Ohio Discovery Corridor. I think that's the vehicle that we're going to push a lot of these stories and try to drive attention that's much needed and deserved. Thanks, Doug. Turn it back over to Ellen. Thank you very much, all the panelists.
Well, I hope you found today's community conversation interesting and that you're more aware of Central Ohio's amazing bioscience industry. Thank you to today's forum partners, the 2025 COSI Science Festival. No shout outs this time? No? And our forum sponsors, Armatus Bio, Battelle, Holder Construction, Ohio Life Sciences, The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, and Sarepta. We are also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and the Ellis for hosting us. And our very special appreciation to today's speakers. Here we go, guys. I apologize in advance. Frank Agbogbo. Did I get it? Thank you. Louise Rodino-Klapac, Robin Sears, Erandi D. Silva, and our host, Tyler Allchin. Please make plans to join us next Wednesday for Who Gets to Move Up? Rethinking Economic Mobility in Central Ohio. Thank you, everyone. We could not do this without you. Have a great afternoon.